Okay, I'll just jump right into it. And I want to welcome everybody for joining us for yet another Q3. This will be the Q3 of 2022, where myself and a bunch of my friends within the Prog community talk about our favorite releases of the past 3 months of 2022. Just quickly talking about our favorite ones, some albums that surprised us, and some that disappointed us. So yeah, I think we'll just do a quick roundtable of just who we are, where we can find each other. All these lovely individuals, I have their channels down below. But why don't we start with the newest individual on this panel? Why don't we start with you, Ian?
Oh golly, pressure. Okay, hi, intro. This reminds me of like when you get those round tables at work and you've got to do an icebreaker to introduce yourself. So hi, my name is Ian. It's the only time you'll hear my real name because I don't use my real name ever on my own channel. I figured I'd have a shtick. I figured the shtick would be quite fun, just to introduce myself as a pop culture reference and just say like a bit about that pop culture reference, for a bit of funsies. But yeah, I've been running my channel now, Rhyme Signatures, for 10 months, coming up to a year now, not too far off. It started at the start of the year, really. Just decided it's something I've been meaning to do for a long time, and I'd sort of flirted with the idea of doing it as a podcast for a little bit, but never really got off the ground. But then obviously, pandemic hit, needed something to do, and I just found myself really enjoying myself doing it. So it's basically exactly what you'd expect. It's reviews from myself, liking to give sort of an British perspective on things, whatever that means, I don't know. But yeah, I'm having a blast with doing it, and I'm really excited to be here, and I can't wait to share with you all what like I've really been enjoying the most over the past 3 months.
Amazing. Yeah, can't wait to hear some of your lists. Brent, why don't you take the stage next?
I'm Brent. I host the Similitude of Prague Facebook page as well as a YouTube channel, and enjoy talking in groups like this. I think we should do it more. And yeah, that's all I got to say. I love prog music and I love hanging out.
Amazing, yeah. And Nathan.
Sure. Yeah, I have a channel on YouTube, Nathan on Shuffle, and cover all sorts of prog topics. I have a weekly news show where I talk about the latest in prog news, do all kinds of prog album reviews, do shows with my wife where I'm introducing her to different prog songs throughout the years. So that's a lot of fun as well. So it's just a variety of different prog related and music related content that's been a lot of fun. I've been going on probably almost a year and a half now, I think, with my channel. So it's been really fun, and it's been fun growing a community there of people who love the same type of music as me. So, and so fun to be part of this group as well. I love doing this too.
Amazing. Great. Yeah. And I'm so happy and glad to have everybody back on or on for the first time. So yeah, without further ado, let's just dive into the best albums of this past quarter. And because now there are four of us, I'm going to roll a four-sided dice to find out who's going to talk about this first. And I am included in this, so we're going to see here. So I've got, looks like it's going to be Brent. What was one of the best albums in your opinion from this past quarter?
I'm going to start with the Mars Volta's new one.
Oh, good choice.
I went into this expecting, before I heard a few of the singles, that it was going to be, their typical ruckus and stuff. But when I've heard this the first time, I didn't know what to think. But I think this is going to be maybe up at the top of the list at the end of the year. I don't know, but it completely blew me away too.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of it?
I totally agree. I don't know if it's quite their best work, but I was pleasantly surprised by this new direction that they went in.
Yeah.
Like 10 years after Tourniquet, I was kind of okay with Mars Volta being done. I think that they went off a little bit more on a whimper than a bang on that one, but seeing this new direction a little bit more accessible, but still testing the boundaries, especially in the production work and the production side of this album, I've been digging it all fall.
Yeah, I like it too. I initially I was a little bit surprised because it wasn't like the kind of classic Mars Volta. It was a sort of new direction for them, so that was a little bit different. But as I listened to it more, I started to really dig it more and more, and kind of like this new sound that it's bringing this new avenue to their sound that really brings a new dimension. And I think it's better than probably their last couple records, but
Mhm.
maybe not to the heights of their first two records, which I hold in real high regard, but it's a different sort of thing. So it doesn't really have to measure up to those. So just really cool for what it is, and a great comeback album. I really like it a lot too.
Mhm.
Do you think it's going to define them or get them a whole new audience? Like, is this something that's going to give a new rebirth to a different kind of genre of music? I get that feeling from it.
I would like to hope so. I don't know if they're going to, like, they'll probably find a little bit of a more fan base, but I find with music nowadays, unless you, I don't know, find the specific way to get into a new audience, it's very hard to get a new group of individuals interested. I really hope this connects, but I think this is more of a something that, like, their original fan base will either like or just kind of put on the shelf and be like, well, at least I still have Francis the Mute, kind of an idea, you know?
Yeah, I have to admit, I feel like the outlier in this situation.
Ooh, yeah.
Peer pressure's getting to me, and I'm just like, everyone likes it. Oh no. Because honestly, for me personally, like, okay, I'm not going to say that I don't like the album, because I do think it is a very good, well-structured and competent album, definitely. But for me personally, I really feel like it was more of a solo project than what I would have called a Mars Volta project in that respect. Now, and don't get me wrong, absolutely change up your style, change up your approach, and change the direction of a band 100%. We've seen it a million times before and done really successfully. I mean, look at Opeth. I mean, like, you went
Yeah.
from like Blackwood Park, Ghost Reveries, even things like Still Life and what have you. And then you make the switch over to like Sorcerers, Heritage, all that sort of thing. And I felt that was a really strong and severe left handbrake turn, obviously, into a new direction. And I felt it really, really worked. But for me personally, this particular sort of stylistic shift with the Mars Volta doesn't quite gel with me as much as I really wanted it to, because I went into this record hoping and expecting to like really enjoy it, because I kind of like the pre-release singles and stuff like that. I thought they were interesting, but I feel like an entire record of this particular style just didn't quite do it for me in the ways that I was really wanting it to. Like, I don't want to say it's a bad record, because it absolutely isn't. It's still really, really good. It's just not quite me, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I feel like you're in the majority of
Mm.
who I've talked to. It was, I will admit, it's a little refreshing talking with Nathan and Brent on here, and having them praise it, seeing the album as I see it. But when I go and I'm talking to a lot of my other friends who love the Mars Volta, they're like, I cannot, there's no way I'm going to be listening to this again. For many of them, it's like their biggest disappointment of the year. And I'm like, are we listening to two different albums here?
No, I would never call it the biggest disappointment of the year, because that's something I'm talking about later.
Right. We've got our lists there. But yeah, I am so glad, Brent, that you had mentioned it, because I definitely have it in one of my bests. So I can cross that off of my best list, so I can
Excellent.
shine the light on a few other ones. So why don't we go to Ian next? Because in my little
golly.
4x4 square, you're the next one up. So
Okay, right. I will take one that only just fits into this quarter, and that is the Deer Hunter's Antimai, which
yes.
absolutely love it. I
Mhm.
found it a bit weird with this one as well, because you go on like a lot of websites and review sites, whatever, and they're all saying Antimai's terrible, it's rubbish, Deer Hunter's lost it, blah, 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 blah. They're talking about the fact that they just completely got off the rails and they don't know what the hell they're doing anymore. And I could not disagree more. I really do love this approach that Casey's gone with on this new record. It's different, it's refreshing, it's really vibrant and punchy. These great bombastic poppy sounds, which just for me works so well in the style they've gone for. It's like you've gone from acts 1 through 5 and you've got this solid, dependable, excellent story which you can really follow as much or as little as you want. Like, it's great no matter how much you get out of that story. And they've got this huge orchestration behind it, this massive sense of pomp and bombast, everything sort of building and crescendoing to almost absurd levels throughout the entirety of the 5 acts. And then Antimai comes along, and it really is like setting the slate clean again. He's starting over. I mean, if you look at the difference between like Act 1 and Act 5, completely different records. Like one's almost in like an acoustic singer-songwriter thing going on, and then in the 5 you've got leitmotifs for days, you've got orchestration coming out your ears. It's just absolutely massive. But to have that sort of almost reset from that incredible sense of grandiosity from Act 5 down to this almost street level thing with Antimai, where he's establishing a world. He's like, this is a brand new place. Everything here is new. I've set this up. And it's absolutely astonishing how well he's crafted this thing. It's just, everything just feels so intimate and familiar. Like Casey has been working on this for so long, and you can really feel the passion that he's put into every single minute on this record. And I just 100% love it. Like absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's fun because both of our albums that we're talking about are 2 albums that essentially are redefining the band with such a massive legacy behind them. Yeah, because our last little round table that we had for Q2, we ended with us knowing and listening to Antimai, but because Antimai was released on July 1st, we couldn't really talk about it because it fits in this one. So I'm so glad that we finally get to talk about it. Because yeah, I've been really loving Antimai. The time I've had with it has only grown my appreciation of the album and the different districts of this world that they live in, all the different like all the different variations of the different areas, while it still feels unified, you know. So I'm wondering, how has this album sat with Nathan and Brent?
Well, I love it. It's in the contention for one of my top albums of the year. I just can't get enough of it. I'm kind of obsessed with it in a way. I just keep listening to it over and over because it's really infectious and fun and just really an enjoyable listen. And I've always loved the Deer Hunter. They're one of my top favorite bands ever, and how they constantly kind of redefine their sound and continually add new elements to their sound is just one of my favorite parts of the band. And they add this almost funkiness and like jazziness to this record, which is just so much fun to listen through. And I like each piece is its own thing and has its own identity as well, but there's also a cohesion about the record. So it's just a lot to love about it, and it's just been growing on me as I listen more and more. So definitely one of my favorites too.
Well, embarrassingly, I don't know of it.
Oh no.
Or any of their stuff, to be honest.
Ooh.
Right.
That means you're in for a real treat.
Yeah, I'm starting to get that feeling.
Yeah. Their entire discography is all great. They have yet to release a bad record. And yeah, Antimai is a great starting point because you don't have this big, lengthy epic behind you like a Coheed and Cambria, where you're coming in and being like, oh, I have to listen to 5 other albums to understand what they're singing about on this one. So because it's I don't know, it's a little bit of a shame for the Deer Hunter, because my favorite albums from them are 4 and 5, like Acts 4 and 5.
Same.
But in order to really appreciate it, you need to listen to Acts 1, 2, and 3 beforehand.
You can kind of dip into it, because like I really did dip my toes in first with Act 4. That was kind of like my first exposure to the band, and it just blew my mind. It was absolutely just astonishingly good from start to finish. But when you dip back, as you say, going through Acts 1 up to 4 and then into 5, and you have all these little nuggets, like lyrically and musically, which interconnect back in on itself, and everything just makes sense, and the cohesive story just explodes around you at that point, and you just think, wow, it's absolutely mind-blowing, and they are one of the best bands out there, like ever, across all genres as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Let's go over to Nathan. Nathan, what is an album that you think is like the cream of the crop, one of the best from July to September?
Okay, I'm gonna have to go with Rio's solo album, Rio Okamoto, Myth of the Mostrophus.
Amazing.
I love it. I'm a huge Spock Spear, Neil Morse fan, as is obvious if you watch my channel and all that stuff. So just hearing the Spock Spear references, that this is like classic Spock Spear and features, most of the members of Spock Spear throughout the years. And it's just so much fun to listen to. It has so many great moments, so many great songs. The big epic at the end is just really fun to listen to, and just has so many cool moments and just flows so well. And I think it takes a little bit of that Neil Morse style to it, but then Rio adds his own elements to it as well. And makes for this cool keyboard driven song, and
Mhm.
just so many cool guests on it. I believe Chrysalis is an incredible song, one of my favorites of the year as well, with Randy McStein on vocals. So I just really love the whole record, and it's been one of the most fun records in the year for me.
Yeah, I echo that entirely. Definitely one of the most fun ones, I think is the best way to put it. And for me, it's pretty much the best Box Beard album since Brief Nocturnes. Even though it's not an official Spock's Beard album, they could have very easily
It might as
released
well
this.
be.
Yeah. I still think the only thing I would change if I could is in the big climax of The Myth of the Monster Fist, the actual title track, when the character comes on of the prog rock singer. If once he appeared, it should have been Neil Morse singing.
Oh my god.
That would have been awesome.
To finalize the because you already have Nick singing on it, Nick DeVirgil. You already had I always forget his name, the one that went
Ted
on
Leonard.
to, that's the one, yeah. So you already had all the other lead singers for Spock's
That would
Beard
have
on
been
it.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you just
I
had
never
him,
realized how much I'd actually want that to be
right?
the
It's
case.
one
I
of
never even
those,
thought about it
yeah,
being
it's
so
just
cool.
one of those when he steps up and starts singing. Yeah, I can only hope that maybe a Cruise to the Edge, they'll have that do it. They have all the Spock's Beard and Neil Morse and Pattern Seeking Animals guys there. Yeah, I've been having so much fun with Rio's album this year. It's very easily in my top 5 for this entire year. But yeah, how did you guys feel about it?
It's the Spock's Beard album that I wish we would get. It's been how long since Noise Floor? Way too long.
2018, I think, was when it dropped.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and
But
especially
yeah,
with
it's absolutely a
yeah,
banger.
yeah,
For only
yep.
having 6 tracks, it's
Yeah, weirdly for me, this one was
perfect
actually
length.
in my surprises of the year rather
Mhm.
than my favorites. But there is a logic to why it was a surprise to me because first of all, I had no idea Ryo Okamoto was going to put out a solo album. That was just like, okay, that's come out of nowhere, but I'm cool
Yeah.
with this. Secondly, the reason why it surprised me is because it's not an explicitly keyboard-driven album like I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Like it's much more of an ensemble piece where every single person involved is given a chance to shine.
Mhm.
Which from let's take another keyboardist out at random whose name rhymes with Jordan Rudess. Oh, sorry, doesn't just rhyme with Jordan Rudess, is Jordan Rudess.
Yeah.
Whose solo work, short of like his covers album where he did that really good cover of Tarkus and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't really vibe his solo work that much because I feel it's a little bit self-aggrandizing, bit too backpatty, kind of like, look at me, I'm Jordan Rudess, I can play 8,000 notes a minute and we're all super impressed, whatever. But Rio kind of brought this. It's kind of like a Spock's Beard album, like we've all said, but in its same instance, it's very much got his own stamp on it.
Mhm.
It feels
Mhm.
much more like a Ryo Okamoto album than say like a Alan Morse or Neil Morse or Ted Leonard era Spock's. And I
Mhm.
love it for that. I absolutely love how unique it sounded and how it's the biggest reason why it surprised me though is because it blew me away just how good it actually was, and I was not expecting it to be as good as it was. Because like I look at it on paper, I'm thinking, okay, it's a concept album about Godzilla basically beating the crap out of a really rubbish town in the south of England, which to me was hilarious, by the way. When you just got Godzilla running around Basingstoke, and I'm just like, I've been there.
Yeah.
That was very funny to me because if you know Basingstoke, it exists. It's there.
It's there. It's sweet.
It's this little place in England which isn't very good, and now you've got Godzilla just destroying it, which I thought that was very, very funny. And but absolutely a really big surprise for me, but in the most positive possible way, and really, really loved it.
Amazing. Yeah. Great. I guess it's my turn. This was hard to kind of pick the one that kind of rose to the top. So I'm kind of glad that I went last because all 3 that came before were ones that I had as best ones. So I don't feel so bad about missing and talking about those ones. But for me, the one that I keep coming back to is one that I discovered very recently, but it was one that was put out earlier, and I believe I actually better do a quick Google search. But it was Toehinder's Memories, or These Memories. I don't remember these. Better double check Toehinder because it's like, oh, I have my Spotify. Yeah, I have little to no memories of these memories.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah, I found out, yeah, September 9th. Okay, whew, made it on the list. I was afraid because there was a few that I'm like, oh yeah, I discovered this album and I want to talk about it, but then it's like, oh, it was released in March, or oh, it was released in May. And I'm like, oh, I want to talk about
Yeah,
albums that
yeah.
were released just within these 3 months. But yeah, I've known about you know, I believe his name is Mike Mills. I knew about him and Toehinder from I Like It, his 2020 album. I know his work with Arion from The Human Equation and 01011001. Love his voice. You know, he does a brilliant cover of Kate Bush's Wuthering Heights. And
It's unbelievable.
he keeps in key, like he keeps in the range. And I'm like, that's like a Daffy Duck, you know, swallowing all the dynamite and swallowing the match.
It's astonishing to listen
You
to
know,
him do that song.
he can only do it once.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
But the thing that I love about this album is that it's just one track and it's like 47 minutes and 47 seconds, or 47 minutes and 47 seconds. As a single track, and it's everything that I want in a progressive rock album. It's a massive epic. It's one track. It sets up all of the themes that will be reintroduced later on. The storyline is sci-fi. It's philosophical. It's talking about, you know, are we our memories? How do we rely on our memories when our memories can't be trusted? And there's so many lines on there. It reminds me of Efrat's The Sum of Damage Done, where he was saying, we are the pothole marks of our own foundation. And within Toehinder, it's we are the sum of the memories we forgot. And it's beautiful. It's great. It covers the vast majority of all the different styles that I love. It's heavy, it's metal, it's soft, it's fluid. The harmonizations of Mike's vocal works and his high highs harmonizing with his low lows. Mwah. It's vying for one of my favorite albums of this year. And I can't get enough of it. And it came from, as all of my favorite albums from each year, it came from a very unlikely source, like one that I was at very least familiar with, but like, that's what I love. I love when either an artist I've never heard of or one that I vaguely know about comes out and just knocks me off my feet. So,
yeah, I mean, absolutely could not agree more with you on that one. I've been following Toehider, Michael Mills, whatever, for like what feels like a million years at this point. Like you say yourself, I mostly discovered him through, was not The Human Equation, what was it? The Theory of Everything. That's the one. I think that's the very first thing I heard him on. Because obviously when a new Arion record comes out, you all get really excited because it's like, who's going to be on the vocals? Oh my God, it's this guy. Or like, it's Roy Khan's coming onto the vocals, or you got Damien Wilson or whatever. And it's like, oh my God, these like prog rock or power metal staples. And you think, oh my God, love this guy, this person's voice, whatever. And then it was like this guy, Michael Mills at Toehider. I'm like, okay, never heard of him, but whatever. And then like he starts singing on like the Theory of Everything. I'm just like, whoa, okay, that's a range. It's like absolutely insane. So obviously I get interested at that point. You know, you check out the back catalogue and you just realize this guy's got a massive, absolutely massively established catalogue already of like this huge amount of music. And then within like a couple of months, I think it was, of discovering him, he releases the What Kind of Creature Am I album, which just blew me away, completely knocked my socks off. And ever since then, I've been a huge, huge fan of his work. Never miss a beat on any of it. Like I've got alerts set up for any time he releases anything new. And I'm just like, I actually remember the morning that I have little to no memory of these memories dropped, I got like an email about 20, 30, 40 minutes before I was supposed to go to bed to get to go to work tomorrow. And I was like, no, we don't go to bed now. We actually throw money at Michael Mills and we spend the next 47 minutes lying in bed listening to this, sort of doing a little dance whilst lying down in bed because you can't stop grooving to the absolute ridiculous nonsense which is going through this freaking album. It's absolutely insane. And like Mike said, there's like so many different crazy different transitions to different styles. You've got like your stoner doom metal parts, which are really, really well done. This ridiculous bass groove as well, which sounds just like something off like an early 70s Black Sabbath record section. The synth level on this is just off the chains, and it really just demonstrates just how much of a competent and incredible multi-instrumentalist and vocalist that Mills actually is. And for one man to have all that talent, it's hardly fair.
It's gonna share it for the rest of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, he's just taking up all this talent, and I'm sat
Yeah.
here like I can play 4 chords on my bass.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. And what I find astounding is that there's this, like, essentially 2 versions of this record. One on the physical disc that has a sad ending, and the one that's on the streaming sites, which is the happy ending. And the happy ending sounds like something that Triumph from the 80s would have written from, like, the Magic Power, that just leaves me with so much joy in my heart. It's so good. Nathan and Brett, have you heard this one yet?
I
Yeah.
have not.
I was going to say, if not, you've got some homework.
Yeah, I can see
Definitely.
that.
Yeah, I've heard it. I love it. I talked a little bit about it on my channel recently, and I've just fallen in love with it. It's one of my new favorites of the year for sure as well. I love the hopping through the different genres and styles, and just how much talent Michael Mills has. You know, for one man to do all this stuff is just wild. And so I can't get enough of it. The more I listen to it, the more I like it, and the more I uncover little fun little bits that I didn't notice the first time around. So it's one of those that's what I like in prog, these big concept records that have so much baked in that there's always something fun to uncover each time I listen. So I think this is an album that has that kind of feel to it. So I really like it.
Amazing. Yeah. And Brent, you haven't heard it yet?
No, actually, I
Oh.
haven't heard of them, period.
Oh, well, lucky, I was going to say, lucky you once again.
Yeah.
You need to start taking a little list. You've got the Deer Hunter to catch up on.
Well, yeah, I
Tail
know.
Rider to
I
catch
should
up
be
on.
writing one down. I'll go back in the video.
Yeah.
My
Oh,
wallet's gonna get.
that's right. Well, why don't we turn back to you, Brent? Is there another album that really, really knocked you out in terms of like the best? I think we'll do 2 from each of us.
I'm gonna say the real one was probably the second one, anyways, just because it was such a, like Nathan said, being such a Neil Morse Spock's Beard fan, to hear something of that caliber was just, it took me right back to realizing why I'm such a big fan of Prog and Spock's Beard to begin with.
Yeah. Which was it called again?
Yeah.
Oh, the Rio
Michael
one.
Morse.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great. Nathan, was there another one that you wanted to touch upon?
Well, most of the ones I was gonna say, like like you guys have all mentioned, Deer Hunter, Toe Hider, all of that. I did really like. I know maybe not everyone was into it, but I liked Lonely Robot's latest album, A Model Life. I thought was pretty nice, much more personal album from him that I thought was pretty good, and I thought had a lot to it. So that's one I liked a lot.
That was my introduction to him as Lonely Robot. And that album actually blew me away. How emotionally charged it was.
Yeah, that one was one that was edging upon disappointments for me. And it's not necessarily because of anything that's found on the album. It's just I love The Big Dream, his second album, so much more. And I just feel like the 3 albums that came after that just never really hit that same kind of high. But it was still like a really fantastic album. Yeah. Ian, was there one that you wanted to talk about? The last of the best.
Golly, yes, actually. I need to decide which of these I actually want to plug. Let's go with that one. So I am a big fan of like the heavier side of prog metal, like the grimy, the angry, the filthy side of things, if you will. As much as I love neo prog and all the various sort of like the old school stuff and everything, obviously, but my heart will always belong, because I mostly come from like a metal background. Like I started my music obsession with like Metallica and stuff like that. Sort of moved on from there, repping the Australian.
Oh yes, Neil,
love. But for me, the most interesting and certainly most exciting record that I heard is the new record from a band called An Abstract Illusion, and it's a record called Woe, W-O-E. And for me, I will not mince my words when I say that this is possibly the most exciting progressive death metal album I've heard since Blackwater Park from Opeth. It is absolutely astonishingly brilliant. There is no uncertain way I can put this. From start to finish, it's sort of treated like a one-song deal, obviously, but split into like 7 parts, obviously. But it's like about an hour long, give or take a couple of minutes here and there. But it just takes you on such a roller coaster. It just dips and dives and dips and dives. It's up and it's down, it's left, it's right. It's clean, it's harsh, sad and angry and almost joyful in places as well. And it is such a trip. I really cannot state enough just how impactful I felt this record was to me when I first listened to it, because it came from like a position of, I didn't know this band, like didn't have a clue about them. And somebody basically said, hey, you like death metal, you should check this out. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. So I clicked play and I was just like, yeah, okay. And then about 5 minutes in, I was just like, ooh, you know, you just like, your eyes just sort of pop out and you just think, oh, hello, this is good. I like this. And it was that sort of reaction, that feeling that I got from it. And it just carried on throughout the entire hour length of it. Like every 3 or 4 minutes, there'd be a bit where you just go, and you just like takes your breath away. It's, oh God, it is so, so good. And if anybody has even the slightest sort of middling interest in anything like prog death metal, then my God, you are in for such a treat with this. It's so good.
Amazing. I have never heard of this one before, so I have queued it up in my musical repertoire because
I think you will vibe it quite a
yeah,
lot.
I know that I also love the heavy metal aspect of it. Like I go head deep into the death metals, so pretty excited about that. The last one that I want to talk about in terms of the best, because I have a bunch here that I could talk about, but this is one that I feel like kind of came out of nowhere for me, and it was recommended to me on my streaming services. It's like, hey, you like weird stuff, how about this? And it's the debut album from the High Castle Tella Orchestra, and it's called The Egg That Never Opened, and it is just a mind-bending experience from start to finish, because it never sits still in terms of its genre. Like it starts off, it's almost as if like Captain Beefheart tried to do contemporary music today and just didn't want to sit still. It was always doing something different. And I like, there's one track on here that I gush over, and I keep thinking like, this isn't fair. You know, like this, people work tirelessly to try to craft songs like this throughout their entire career, and you come out on your debut album putting out something like this. Yeah, it absolutely blew me away. And yeah, if you like music that's very avant-garde, rock and opposition, never sit still, and just like, let's see the limits of music before it becomes sound. I think that this is a great one for everybody. So yeah, have you guys heard it? Because I know it's a little bit on the smaller side. It's not one that
Listen to it once.
Yeah.
Liked what I heard, haven't gone back to it yet because I've had so many other things to listen to, but I did like what I heard on the first listen, and it is something I really do mean to go back to.
Yeah, I sampled it briefly after I think seeing your review of it, so I, you know, it was pretty interesting. I have to go back to it, but yeah,
I feel
a lot
like
going on.
Yeah, I tell this album to a lot of people, and they're like, "Yeah, I listened to it once." And that's it. That's all I need.
I frightened you away.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's fair. At least you gave it a try. Okay, so let's move on to surprises, and I'm going to roll my dice once again to find out who's going to go first. So why don't we start with Nathan this time? Nathan, what was an album that really surprised you?
The one I had on my list for this is Black Midi's record, Hellfire. Just because it's not really the typical kind of music I like. It's a bit kind of chaotic and has this almost punk kind of element to it, to their sound. But I was just fascinated because there's so much going on with it, and it's somewhat of a conceptual album, and it's just, there's so much fascinating stuff in the musicianship, and they play around a little bit with styles and different things in it, and there's this like fast, almost rap style vocals that they do that are just like, you have to really listen to it multiple times to get down what they're talking about. And it's a really fascinating album. It's a little bit shorter, but it's packs a punch. There's so much in the music, and I've tried to listen to them before and never really connected, but this was the first time where I like, yeah, this is interesting. I could see why people like this, and how this could almost spark a new style in prog, kind of spark a new generation of people who like, this more adventurous style of music. So I like it for that respect too.
Yeah, I fully agree. Their last album, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It came out last year, and I was lukewarm when it first came out, but the more time I spent with it, the more I warmed up to it. And it prepared me perfectly for Hellfire, and I've been loving this next album of theirs. I like how they mellowed out in certain areas, but then definitely ramped up the chaos in many other areas. And I agree with you, Nathan. I think that this, as well as Black Country New Road, has basically created a progressive rock for this next generation, because they're doing a lot of the stuff that like King Crimson and Gentle Giant were doing in the early 70s, just with newer music. So yeah, absolutely a surprise. Brent and Ian, have you guys heard this one yet?
No.
Oh no. This one I would, just knowing your taste in music, Brent, I would put a little asterisk and like proceed with caution.
Yeah, I'm picking that up.
I don't know if this one is quite up your alley the same way that, say, the Deer Hunter or oh shoot, I've already forgotten the other albums. Toe Hider. Yeah, I feel like I feel like those, I would start with those ones. based on what I like. That's right. Yeah.
Interestingly, the Black Midi record was actually on my disappointments list.
Really?
Oh, no.
All right.
But not for the reason you might be thinking. It's on my disappointments list genuinely because I'm more disappointed with me.
Oh, okay.
Everything on paper about Black Midi, like everything about them, screams, Ian, you like this stuff. Why don't you like this record? What's wrong with your ears? So every time I've sat down to listen to it, I'm like, okay, this time for sure, I'll understand it. And by the time I get to the end of it, I'm just like, nah, mate, what?
Right.
And there's one other band which comes to mind when I think about Black Midi in this particular terms of like just inability to understand it. But I don't want to like say that it's a bad record, because it isn't. The musicianship on this Black Midi record is outstanding. The vocals are great. The musicianship is great. There is just something not quite working for me on it. And the only other band, like I say, that I can think of where all the component ingredients are great is Swans. I have tried to get into Swans for 20 years. I can't do it. I just can't do it.
That's fair. I love Swans, but I can also understand why it wouldn't connect with certain individuals, right? And it's interesting you talking about that. Our mutual buddy Travis, who has been on the first one of these, he has the same experience, but with very heavy neo-prog like IQ and Marillion and Arena. He's like, on paper, I should love this stuff, but it might be that it's trying to be everything to everyone that loves prog that I don't like it. It's like the SUV vehicle when all I want to do is drive either like a pickup truck or a sports car or so yeah, it's just so interesting, those bands that on paper we should love, and we just can't
like I
get
say,
into.
It's not to say anything bad against Hellfire as a record, because everything is competently and in some cases incredibly well done. As I say, the disappointment is purely with me, because I'm just frustrated that I don't like it. It's just like my brain just feels like it's rebelling against me. It's like, you should like this. Come on, Ian, stop prattling around and enjoy the damn record. And I was like, I can't do it. I can't. Drives me mad, honestly. I'll keep trying, and maybe eventually it'll click for me. Maybe I just haven't had the right alcohol when I'm
maybe. Well, Well, speaking of Ian, what is an album that really surprised you this
Oh,
time?
golly, yes, I've actually been really looking forward to talking about this record because I want to pimp it as like hard as I possibly can because honest to God, I absolutely love this album so much. Now, the album is by a band called Versa, Versa.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes,
yes, yes,
and the
yes.
record is called A Voyage and then a destination.
Mhm.
Now, the reason why I found this record so surprising is because browsing the internet as you do, tap to tap, going to all the various different websites and what have you. I don't even remember where I found this from, but I was like, saw the album art and I was like, oh, that's pretty. I like that. And then I looked a bit more into it and I see some names appearing on the album credits. I'm like, Eric Gillette, I like him. He's good. Jim Gray, ooh, Nick DiVirgilio, ooh, hello. You know, my attention is being thoroughly grabbed by these names. And then I'm like, okay, it's a 4-track album. You've got your bookending of epics. You've got your 15-minute one at the start, and you've got your 27-minute one. Just glancing at my other screen to see how long it is. 27-minute epic at the end, and you've got these 2 little shorter tracks in between. So it's kind of a bit like, I don't want to say Wish You Were Here, but it's kind of structured in that sort of classic sort of like big epics at either side and little stuff in between, like a sandwich kind of thing. And it is genuinely, for me, one of the most gorgeous sounding, completely fulfilling records I've heard in so long. It is riding in my top 3 at the moment of the entire year. And I suppose the best way to sell it to somebody, certainly within the prog community, is obviously you've got Eric Gillette and Jim Gray, like, you know, Neil Morse Band and Caligula's Horse, which are 2 really big sort of like presences within the community in terms of like how accepted they are and how good they are as vocalists. And they don't hold back here at all. Like they are on absolute top form on like the respective tracks that they feature on, which are the epics, by the way. So you get quite a lot of them in each. But it's kind of like progressive post-rock in that respect. You've got these enormous, huge soundscapes and this utterly gorgeous piano tone, which just, oh God, it just melts my heart every single time. It just starts so beautifully. And then you've got all manner of different types of like classic prog worship on, like on the big ending track, it just like channels King Crimson from like a Red era so strongly in some parts with these staccato violin parts, which are scary as all hell, but really, really good. And it's just such a trip from start to finish. And they seem like such lovely, genuine people as well. Like when they tweet out and they just like these regular guys. And it's just like, I want more people to listen to you. You're lovely. You know? So for me, that was the biggest surprise I've had this year. Because I've had like bands which I've listened to, like never heard before. And I've thought, okay, pretty decent, not bad. But it's not very often I get situations like that where they are sort of like clinging to the potential of being the favorite of the year, you know, which is why I love this so much.
Yeah, I've listened to it and I actually have my review ready to go for this coming week. So I think it's scheduled for Tuesday or Wednesday. I think Wednesday. Yeah, it's gorgeous. I think Ian, you gave it the perfect description of like progressive post-rock, because it's reminding me of like Explosions in the Sky. It's reminding me of Mogwai, like emphasis on creating atmosphere and mood. Without the same way that say like a Marillion would do, where it's very ethereal, very floating. There's like the first half of that last track, just you can tell Nick on the drum, he does a lot on the drums on there, because it's giving me that same kind of big train vibes that he does, especially from like the big electric time. It's a gorgeous album. It's one that I listen to when I'm doing like chores, like when I'm editing videos, when I'm sprucing up the apartment, because it provides the perfect background track to it. So it's also funny because as I was listening to it, they reached out to me and said, "Hey, you're Canadian. We're Canadian. You should listen to our album." I'm like, "Well, funny that." I'm already doing that. So yeah, it was great. It was great. Yeah, Brent and Nathan, have you heard it yet?
I haven't. I have it on my list to listen to, but yeah, I haven't really heard it yet, but I want to.
Yeah, I definitely want to now too.
Yeah, it's very good.
I thoroughly recommend that. It's just so good.
Yeah, the other, and this will help kind of solidify if you know the other feature on this album, that this was the one that solidified it for me, was Mariana Sakimna from I Am the Morning, and her own solo stuff.
Very nice.
Her voice is one of my top 5 favorite vocals in prog right now. It's just so beautiful. And she really dominates the second half of that last track. It's
Awesome.
it's really good.
Nice.
Gotta check
Yeah.
it out. Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't recommend it enough.
Yeah,
It's just,
so
oh,
good. Yeah. Brent, what was one that surprised you?
This Steve Hackett seconds out,
Yeah.
not because he's repeating the album, but he just puts a brand new modern twist on everything.
Yeah.
And it sounds like almost like a perfect remix of the original Genesis album. The concert Blu-ray is outstanding, especially if you have a good kick-ass system at home.
I could imagine.
It was unbelievable. And the guy being what, mid-70s,
Gonna
and he's
say,
still kicking this kind of ass. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Hope he keeps going on for the next 5-10 years.
Yeah. It's so funny because every time he puts out a new live, like especially a new Genesis Revisited live, I'm like, do we really need another one?
Yeah.
And then I listen to it.
They just recorded one for Foxtrot at 50.
Yeah.
So next year we'll be getting that.
Yeah. So each time I'm like,
favorite.
okay, I'll begrudgingly listen to it. And then I listen to it, I'm like, okay, yeah, we kind of need this.
Yeah, you definitely do. I think it would be a perfect place for somebody who's not really familiar with Genesis to check this out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. In my review, I said that I had more like observations that I'd like to see. Like I would have loved to see some of the Genesis tracks that didn't get the live treatment at Seconds Out.
Yes.
In that, rather than him starting off with some of his solo stuff. And I really do wish that they had brought on a second drummer, just to help fill out the big drumming fills from Seconds Out.
Let me interrupt you for a minute. Talking about drummers.
Come in.
What's his drummer right now? The Frost drummer.
Oh, right. Yes.
Craig Blundell.
Right.
Yes, Craig.
He's out going to be touring with Frost, and they've got Nick DeVilgio coming in to play with them. That could be interesting.
That will be very interesting. I'm very, because I would love to see Frost live. If they ever want to jump over the pond and come to North America.
Yes, I'm more likely to be able to see them live.
There you go. You'll have a better chance than I will. Yeah. I was blown away by Seconds Out live. I absolutely loved it. So yeah. Okay. So sadly, none of you touched any of my surprises. So now I have to be very careful with which ones. I think the one, I know this is hard. The one that I want to put the spotlight on, I think, is the album from Moon Letters, Thank You from the Future. It's a great retro prog outfit, very young, very new. After I did my review for it, they actually sent me the CD, and I'm like, amazing, now I can listen to it in my car. Yeah, it gave me the same kind of excitement that, like, twice or maybe sometimes 3 times a year, a good retro prog outfit will come out, and I'm just blown away by it. You know, it's reminding me of like Third Degree with some of their music that from the past, like Zeros and One. It's giving me like really, really good and just like wholesome progressive rock, like straight up progressive rock. Like, we're not going to try to do anything too crazy. We're not going to try, we know the formula and we're just going to do it, and they do it so well. So yeah, that's the one that I really, really enjoyed. So, and it surprised me. I loved it. I loved it.
Was it Moon Letters?
Yeah, Moon Letters is the band. The album is Thank You from the Future. I think this is their second album.
I will be sticking that on the list of things to listen to later, because I'm not familiar with it, but I want to be from the sound of it.
Yeah, it's very, very fun.
Yeah, I like that one a lot too. That's a really good choice.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And doing things out of order, I think we'll just go backwards. For my second surprise, now luckily you guys talked a bit about the other couple, but still not as much. I'm going to switch genres to the progressive metal side of things. The new record from Persephone, the album of, I think it's Metanoia. If you love progressive metal in the same vein of like a Dream Theater, of like Symphony X, like that kind of flavor of progressive metal, like 90s 2000s progressive metal before, you know, the big symphonic side of things, the big darkness came. Yeah, Persephone has really been, I've been really grooving to this album. Their previous album was very, very good, but this one I think is even better. And I've heard that people are like, well, it's good, but it's not as good as some of their other ones. I don't know. I think this one's their top one. I've been really, really loving this. So if you guys are a fan of that style of progressive metal, I think you'll get a kick out of this one.
Yeah, my enthusiastic nodding, you could probably guess that I have listened to this for quite a bit. It's a really good record. I've been a pretty big fan of Persephone since like Shinken from back in the day. Moving then obviously to like a Spiritual Migration and Athma after that. For me personally, I don't think they've ever really topped Spiritual Migration. That was like my awakening moment with the band where they really just was like, holy crap, this is just like unreal good. And Doran, if I remember correctly, aren't they? Like, I think they're from Andorra. Something like that. They might be. If I'm wrong, then the internet, I'm sure, will tell me.
They'll tell us. Oh, absolutely.
That stupid man with the beard doesn't know what he's talking about. They're actually from somewhere entirely different. But no, regardless of where they're from, but if they are, it's cool they're from there because it's a tiny little country like this big. But they're so good. There's so much presence, so much power and energy behind the band. They've really got this fantastic. Again, I hate to repeat words on myself, but presence is the best word I would use to describe them in terms of their recording style and just everything they bring to the table. And I've not been disappointed by a single record of theirs yet.
Yeah. Nathan and Brent, have you guys heard about this one yet?
I've tried to get into them in the past, but I haven't quite broken into them.
Okay, no worries. Maybe if you haven't heard this one, maybe this will be the one that. And if not,
a good place to start.
No worries, yeah.
I don't know, there's bands that do that to me. You try, and all of a sudden one day it's just like, no, I get it now.
I get it now, yeah. Yeah, I have that.
There's always hope, right?
Yeah, that's it. It's like, oh, this is what everybody's talking about. Okay, now I see it. Yeah. All right, let's go to Brent. What was another surprise that you had this year?
The new remix of Animals.
Yeah.
Pink Floyd, this album probably being my favorite album of all time. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll never replace the original because that's what I've heard and that's what I've learned. So sometimes I have a real problem with remixes.
Yeah.
In this case, I did appreciate it. They did a really good job.
Yeah. I think at this point, the only remix that I'm begging to hear is Yes Songs, because we're still kind of waiting for that one. But yeah, I loved the new mix from Animals. I think it was your review that was like it kind of loses a little bit of that dour muddiness on the mix that made Animals that much better.
It took a lot of the coldness and the starkness away from it and gave it a little more warmth, and that was probably my biggest gripe with it. I don't think for a concept album of Animals, you don't want it really to be all that lush and vibrant and bright. You know? But I am glad that we got like this. I think I said like a well-loved rug got a brand new shampoo, and now all those colors are starting to come back into it. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Very good way.
Yeah.
Excited
Ian,
to hear that now. Oh,
Ian,
yes,
is there another one that you were surprised about?
I've got a few actually, but I just want to just touch especially on this next one.
Absolutely.
It's a band that, again, another one I've never heard of, and it came to my attention via various sources and internet browsing. A band called King Buffalo, of all things, which is
I have heard about them.
Yes. And it's their latest album called Regenerator. Now, what they've done, like over the past pandemic era, effectively, is they've released sort of almost 3 albums, like one after the other in terms of years. And this was my first exposure to them, and I've sort of like obviously gone backwards from this record. But I was not expecting to have as good a time with this as I was. I suppose the easiest way to describe King Buffalo, certainly this record at the very least, would be kind of like post-rock Porcupine Tree, which I think is probably the best way to sort of introduce it, especially to the people within this chat, as a ways of sort of like enforcing, like the very last track, which is called Firmament. if you listen to Harmony Korine by Stephen Wilson of Insurgents, then you listen to that, you're like, okay, someone's been taking notes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's such a chill record. It's got this wonderful, spacey, dreamy vibe about it. And it's just so enrapturing. I just cannot get enough of this. Like it's a nice, straightforward 44-minute long sort of deal, and it's just so easy just to just whack on in the background and do something else and just sort of space out to it. And it just really touched me like nothing that I really expected it to do so, because a lot of the times you come to bands that you've never heard of before, you have no expectations, and in some ways that's a great thing. To have no expectations mean you can't possibly be disappointed by it or whatever. But in the best possible way, it can surprise you, which is exactly what this did. And I cannot get enough of it. It is, again, tickling the upper echelons of my top 10 list again. And I just, honestly, I'm likely to just go and listen to it again before I go to bed tonight, because it's just so dreamlike and so much fun to listen to. And I just really, really loved it.
Yeah, seeing that it starts and ends with a 9+ minute song, I'm like, well, I know what I'm listening to after this call. Oh boy.
Why are we so obsessed with the lengths of songs?
We're prog nerds.
Prog guys are like, oh, the longer the better. It's like,
oh yeah. I still
I've got no
think
time for 3-minute pop songs. What's that about?
no.
Ooh, a 12-minute song? Well, let's hear this. Let's go.
Definitely.
Oh boy. All right, Nathan, a surprise from you.
Yeah, the one I wanted to mention is a band called Dim Gray and their album Firmament, which I really enjoyed. I think they're on like Big Train's record label or something, so there's some shared connection there. I believe their keyboard player is playing live with Big Train, I think. But they're kind of almost more like, I think of it almost more as like indie rock with maybe little bits of prog flavor in there. A lot of like more lush arrangements and a little bit of orchestration. And it's just very kind of dreamlike and just really just a relaxing experience. And I just really, really appreciated it. I thought it was just really laid back, really pleasant to put on in the background and listen to, and just kind of takes you on this little bit of a journey. So I really found that to be one of my favorites. So.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I have a reason to dive in and actually listen to it, because I have seen it make its way throughout my spheres, but unfortunately I didn't get to dive into it. Ian and Brent, have you heard it? Ooh, all right, a new one for everyone.
That description again, it really does sound like my kind of thing, because ultimately, whilst prog rock and what have you is my main wheelhouse, I don't limit myself to anything. I love literally every genre of music, apart from like certain specific things. But generally speaking, I am convinced that there are brilliant examples of every genre of music. And like for me, bands like, I don't know, The War on Drugs, if you've ever heard of them before, they're fantastic sort of indie rock style band. And I love that sort of like singer-songwriter kind of thing as well. Like Ethel Cain's record that was earlier this year, really, really vibed with that. I thought that was fantastic. And that was that beautiful slice of sort of like indie Americana, and I love that sort of stuff. So from your description of it, Nathan, it definitely sounds like this is something I'd really enjoy. So I have jotted it down on a piece of paper so I don't forget.
Yeah, check it out.
Definitely, I will be doing.
I've got a small list of albums that I want to be checking out after this. Absolutely.
Yeah, me too.
It's a big list.
Yeah. You've got all of the Deer Hunter to look forward to. I'm actually really jealous.
That's true. Oh boy.
If I could listen to those albums all over again with no knowledge of them, oh my gosh,
it'd be great. So let's go into the last one, the disappointments. I only have one, and I think most of us probably only have one. But let's go to the one that we haven't started off with. I believe Ian, I think you were the only one that we didn't start a segment with. So why don't we start with you?
I see. Throw the disappointments to the new guy. Get the vitriol.
It's just the dice. It's just the dice.
Fine. The internet will forgive me later, I'm sure of it.
Oh yes.
They never forgive. Okay, my biggest disappointment. I almost want to call this my biggest disappointment of the year, not just the disappointment of the quarter. Is Oceans of Slumber's new album. I found it very frustrating. Now, I loved this band, and I still do love this band. They've always been that sort of almost like, the best way to describe it, I suppose, is more like a sort of a doomy black metal-y, well, not black metal, but sort of a doomy prog kind of thing. They've got this sort of like dirge-like sort of long form, big explosive soundscape thing going on. And they recently sort of like kind of just like threw that all in the bin and made, I don't want to even call it a singer-songwriter album because that feels disingenuous to call it that. It's more like the sort of again, it's ridiculous because I should like it. It's like a stripped down Americana kind of album. And I should love that. And Cami Gilbert, the lead vocalist, she got married recently and changed the surname, and I can't remember her surname. But Cami Gilbert, honestly, for me, one of the strongest vocalists in music, just in general. Her voice is one of the most haunting, excessively, beautifully brilliant things I've ever heard come out of speakers ever. And I feel, for me personally, it was completely wasted on this album. I felt it was not doing justice to what she's capable of, not doing justice to what the band has done before in their career. And I wanted so badly to like this album because I've loved everything they've done up until this point. Like the self-titled, I think, which was the previous record to this, was absolutely jaw-dropping. And I've seen them live a couple of times as well. And dear God, she's incredible live. Like, you are not prepared for how good she is live. But this record just, I found it, I don't know, it was plodding at times, a bit dull, and genuinely, I find myself like not really recognizing one song from the next. And I just found it so frustrating, you know, because I know the band can do better than this because I've heard them do better than this. It's annoying to see that the latest release, for me personally at least, was such a marked dip in quality because you're used to bands sort of like almost a bell curve throughout their lifespan. You know, they start slow, they start get to the peak, and then they sort of taper out and fall away into the nothingness, you know, Dream Theater.
Yeah.
You know, but
yeah,
that's the subject for another video.
Yeah, no, I echo your concerns because the lead singer is like, her vocal range is gorgeous. It reminds me of an independent artist by the name of LP. A smaller act. I know of her from her one track Muddy Waters. This very like full-bodied vocal works. And I agree with your sentiment. Like, it's wasted on this just fine metal record. You know, it reminded me of some of Evanescence's later albums, like a gothic approach. And it's like, okay, all the systems are there. It's just, it didn't come together in the end.
No, that's exactly. It's like they've gone from this really great progressive metal act to basically being like a watered down gothic Americana act. And if this was their first album that I'd ever heard, I probably wouldn't be disappointed with it because I don't think it's fundamentally a bad record. I just, for me, it's just not what I wanted from the band and not what I think they're best at. It feels like they've taken a step in a wrong direction, and mostly it's wrong for me because I don't personally think there's any wrong directions to take music in, because ultimately it's about the artist's individual expressionism and they can do whatever the hell they want because it's their music. You know? But just for me personally, I just didn't gel with this switch up in their sound at all, and I just found myself just looking at the album art and going, look how they massacred my boy. You know, I was like, no.
Nathan and Brent, have you heard Oceans of Slumber at this point?
I have not.
It was one that came across my desk with their last album, and it was pretty good. Like, I really like their last album. Again, if you like kind of a more gothic, I'm thinking of like Camelot or what's the one that I keep, anyway, more gothic, darker style of progressive metal music,
like brooding in a way.
Yeah, like brooding. Okay, let's go to Brent. What was a disappointment from you this quarter?
First of all, when you see me going like this, I'm not stroking out. There's a fly in here and it's driving.
Oh no.
Yeah, where's my machete?
Where is it?
My biggest disappointment in this last quarter has been Muse.
That's the same one for me.
And you can say the same thing, Ian, as you just said about Muse, where they're, you know, going up this peak and then it's just
straight down.
And I don't understand why, because the talent in that band is unlimited. But yet they just, I don't know what. You know, maybe just because I used to love them, for a couple of years there, they were just, that was my world. Them and Radiohead, and
Yeah.
they just kind of shit the bed in a way.
I'm starting to think we're the same person, Brent, in some ways here. You know?
Yeah, like it just.
I adored Muse when I was like, God, how old would I have been? Like mid-20s, maybe something like that. Like early to mid-20s or whatever. When like you had like Origins of Symmetry and what have you, and even as late as Black Holes and Revelations come out, I loved Muse. I thought, oh my God, Matt Bellamy, amazing voice, just ridiculous falsetto, and I just really, really loved it. And just the bass work, the guitar work, the lines, the leads, the riffs, oh my God, it just felt so ridiculous. It was just absolutely perfect. And then the downward spiral sort of kicked in. Like, what was it called? Was it the Second Law?
The Second Law. You had the Resistance, the Second Law.
Yes, the Resistance is where it started for me, because I kind of like the sort of experimental avant-garde they did on that. It was kind of okay, different. But then it was just sort of, and then you had like drones and stuff like that, and then the one that came after drones with like the synth wavy looking cover. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, Simulation Theory.
That's the one, Simulation Theory. And then this one, I was just like, oh my God, what the hell is going on? I was just not pleased at all with this new direction.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. At least, like, I appreciate Resistance and the Second Law. There are some tracks on there that I really do love, and is, you know, some of my favorite from Muse. And I am a drones defender. I love drones. But I can also understand why people don't like it. So it's been a varying quality, but this is the first album from them that, outside of Simulation Theory, because I didn't like Simulation Theory at all. It's warmed up a little bit, but not to the, like, it's just a little too 80s cheese without being the fun 80s cheese. This was the first one from them that I was just like, oof. There's only one track off of this album that I genuinely enjoy, and it's the throwaway Halloween track. You know, that's the only track I love from this album, and it's only to put on all of my Halloween mixes. It's the only reason why this track exists. And it's a shame, because much like you, Brent, Muse used to be the band that I would point to when people are like, oh, all the new music out there today it sucks. Yeah. I'm like, well, you can't say that because there's Muse. Now I'm like, well, oh no.
The worst thing about it for me is that I feel like it's like retroactively tainted their back catalogue. Because if I went up to somebody like 10, 15 years ago, you know what, big fan of Muse, love it. People are, oh yeah, cool, Muse are great. Yeah, love that now. You go to somebody now and you're just like, yeah, I like Muse. I'm a bit embarrassed about it.
Yeah, you know. It's you shouldn't feel that way, because
absolutely
that's part of your fucking fly. Past it, you just, you know, it's always going to be there. Like, I listen to look back and look at some of the stuff I used to listen to, and I cringe, but
oh God,
it's always going to be a part of my growing up. So,
like, especially because this was supposed to be like a best of new tracks, and I would just rather listen to Origins of Symmetry or Absolution.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, just the way, you know, I probably piled on enough, but yeah, I had it penciled in on my disappointments too. Yeah. Although I did feel it was almost like it felt like a guilty pleasure listening through it. Like, there's some fun to be had here, but I can recognize it's not as great as their classics. So that was kind of my feeling about it.
Yeah. Oh boy. And moving on, Nathan, was there a album that you felt was a disappointment?
Yeah, so maybe a bit more obscure of an album, but one that I had high hopes for was the album. It's the band's called Birth, and the album's Born.
Yeah.
Retro prog, kind of from the ashes of Astra, cool retro prog outfit. And I thought it was going to be one of my favorites, like one of those on paper that, like, I love this style and love the kind of throwback feel, but I didn't really grab onto it. I almost felt more like demos and not fully sketched out, and just a little bit of them just kind of jamming. And I just didn't really get into it. And I didn't really like the production. It's a little bit old fashioned, which I think is part of the style, but just, it didn't really grab me as much as some of the more modern releases. And so that was kind of a disappointment to me, because I had high hopes that, based on Astra and based on their style here, that would be more to my liking, but I just couldn't really get into it.
Yeah, I remember when this was making a lot of waves back in like the mid September, and I listened to it and I'm like, yeah, this is fine. Um, but I actually enjoyed. It was an album from the band called Dal, Daal, of Dia Dios, I think it is Dia Dios.
They're the same band that did Dodecahedron a few years ago.
Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that. I
that
think
was a
so.
good record.
Yeah, and essentially Dow was doing what Birth. I feel like Dow was doing what Birth was attempting to do, but they were much more successful at it.
Okay.
So yeah, I kind of share your sentiment there, Nathan, where it's just like, I was really hoping for something a little bit better, especially from the ashes of a much more like well-loved band.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to admit, I very much on the similar sentiment because, like, I remember listening to the Black Chord by Astra like back in the day, and my mind was just like blown apart. I absolutely love that record, and I still do. So I gave this one by, I can never remember which the name of the band and the name of the record is because they're both like the same word. But I think it is the name of the band.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gave it a couple of spins and I didn't hate it by any stretch of the imagination, but
Yeah.
like Nathan said, it just felt like it could have been so much more, especially considering the amount of buzz that I'd been hearing about. I was expecting grander things or more exciting, interesting, or even more experimental and creative stuff from it, but I just wasn't getting that from it. And again, I suppose I would probably call that another one of my disappointments. I hadn't thought to write it down, to be honest with you, but now that I think about it, I'm kind of like, yeah, you know what, actually, yeah. Frustrating, I think is the word I want to use.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, so luckily you guys have covered the ones that I were going to talk about. I mean, my main one was Muse. So there was one other album that it would be hard pressed for me to say that I was disappointed with, less so because of the hype that I was bringing to the table, but more of the hype that I felt from a lot of my contemporaries within the prog sphere, because a lot of people are like, oh, this is great, we can't wait for it, it sounds so good. And that unfortunately is the new album from Dave Kresner with his album The Traveler. And it was being billed as like this really beautiful, really great prog statement. And online, you can only find about like 5 tracks in an EP. You have to go behind a paywall in order to get the whole album. And I'm used to doing that for certain bands like Glass Tiger and Glass Hammer is one.
Glass Hammer, yeah.
Sorry, it's a lot of these bands share very, very similar name.
I'm pretty sure Nathan's got a big hype for Glass Hammer at the moment, for unknown reasons.
I'm used to doing that for certain bands, but for a band that I'm not used to, I'm like, well, okay, I need to do this because I want to review it. And what I kind of got was what I had heard from other bands this past quarter, like 6x6, like A to Z, that I felt like they were doing it better, like this kind of revival of the prog adjacent music from bands like Kansas, like bands like Styx, where it was rock first with flavors of progressive rock into it. And I felt like Dave Kresner was doing that same kind of thing, but after I've listened to A to Z and 6x6 do it so much better, I was like, I personally don't understand the hype for this record. It's fine, but I wouldn't have paid the $10 that I did for this album had I known better. That's just my own little thing. And that was the only album outside of the Muse album that I was like, oh man. So yeah, that was my last little bit.
I can't say I've listened to that one yet, but
like you don't need to.
Paywall. Yeah. Save myself $10. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to listen to the EP that has about 5 songs on it, 3 to 5 songs, you get the flavor of what. Okay. And so if it whets your appetite, you're like, ooh, I want more of that. Go for it. But if you're listening to the EP and you're like, yeah, no, I'm good, you don't need to go any further than that. So yeah,
keep that in mind.
So the last little bit, this is going to be the final little segment, and that is the new albums that will be coming out in the final stretch of 2022. These are the ones that we're looking forward to. And because I haven't started one, I'll start this one. And I'll just rapid fire the 3 that I'm most excited for. And I think these might be the same 3 that you guys have, but we'll see. I'm actually excited. The first one obviously is the new Devin Townsend record. Really, really excited about that one. Because I have ties within the industry, I might be listening to it currently, but but I will save all of my opinions for the drop of the embargo. The other two is Gandalf's Fist. For anybody that isn't familiar with Gandalf's Fist, they're right off the heels of their 1-2 punch of the Clockwork Fable and the prequel of the Clockwork Fable, a masterful like 3-disc epic concept album. Great stuff. I love Gandalf's Fist. And the other one is one that we've been teased so much that I'm so like, just drop it already, is the new Evership, the Uncrowned King Act 2. I'm like, just freaking drop it. Just drop it already.
I've
like,
listened to it 3 times.
So I know if it's not already out, it should be.
Oh, it is.
But yeah, those are my 3. Those are the 3 that I can't wait to talk about. New Devin Townsend, new Gandalf's Fist, and new Evership. Yeah, Nathan, is there any other ones that you are excited for, or anyone that you want to talk about?
What just released is David Lungden's posthumous solo album, Door 1. So I've been listening to that a little bit. So
I cried a little, I'm not gonna lie. Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna weep.
It really just got me like right
Yeah,
here. I mean, even without the unfortunate circumstances, it's still an absolutely heart-wrenching record. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm looking forward to Arena coming out with the Theory of Molecular Inheritance. So that's one on my list.
Yep.
Yep. And Threshold, Dividing Lines is coming out too. So those are the main ones I was looking at.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Brent, which ones are you looking forward to in this last quarter of 2022?
Of course, Devin. It'll be sad to say, but my real introduction to him, those first 2 singles have actually impressed the hell out of me. I think they're both beautiful songs.
Yeah.
Arena, as Nathan said. Galahad's got a new album coming out.
Yeah.
Gandalf's Fist, I think I want to dive into their stuff more. And they keep telling us that we might see a Peter Gabriel album out this year. So
that'd be nice.
That would be awesome.
That would be really good. Yeah, we'll see if this is the year, because they've been teasing us with that one pretty much since the beginning of this year, like even last year. So we'll see.
And the new Queensryche album, which is really good.
Oh yeah.
It's very solid.
This is my own little plug within my own video. I've started a podcast, a meditative podcast about metal music. And we'll be looking at the new Queensryche album with the new I believe it's the new Lamb of God album. So it's strictly metal. We flirt a little bit with progressive metal, but yeah, we'll be talking about the new Queensryche, because pioneers of progressive metal, essentially.
Yeah.
Amazing. And Ian, any ones that you're excited about?
Yes, I do have. There's some ones that are due to come out, and there's some that have just come out. So like the due to come out ones, really excited for the new Avantasia record, which for anybody not familiar with Avantasia, it's Tobias Sammet of Edguy. It's kind of like his sort of rock opera project. Kind of think like a power metal Aerion, effectively, because you've got like loads of different guest vocalists and all that sort of thing. So it's kind of like Aerion, but less prog, more power metal, and it's really cheesy, really fun. And like his 2008 record, The Scarecrow, was like one of my all-time favorite power metal records, like of all time, forever and ever, amen. So good, absolutely ridiculous. You've got like Jorn Lander, Russell Allen, you've got these big names on it, like holy crap. And there's also, again, some really big names on the new Avantasia record. Unfortunately, Jeff Tate is one of them, but, regardless of what our opinions about Jeff Tate may be, he's still got some pipes, But I'm looking forward to that, because I've always been a big fan of Avantasia and Tobias as like a songwriter and what have you. Obviously, Devi, can't wait. Ludicrously excited for that. Going to see him live next March, so probably get to see some of those songs being played live, which is going to be very cool. Not really more I can say about him that hasn't already been said, except that literally one of my favorite people in the music industry forever. Just big love to Devi forever and ever. You've got a new Elder record coming out in November. Anybody not familiar with Elder? They're kind of like a big, long form, progressive stoner doom metal kind of thing going on. Really, really strong band. Never really released anything bad. Reflections of Earth, I think, is the one record I would recommend the most from them. Just double check see if I've got the name of that right, because I don't think I have. Elder. Not a second. There's like 1,000 bands called Elder, and I'm going to get the wrong freaking one. Yes, I got the wrong one. No.
Oh, no.
I knew it. Why does this happen to me when I'm being recorded? My God. Maybe it's that one. Yes, that's the one. Reflections of a Floating World by Elder. It's a astonishingly good record. It is just so good. But then you've got like the record before it, Law and Dead Root Stirring. Oh my God, just such a good band. Really, really love it. So new material from them is very, very exciting. But my big hype record at the moment, and it's just come out like about a week ago, is a band called Parius with their record The Signal Heard Throughout Space. And my God, I've heard it like 5 times now, and it's like it is threatening my top spot with like a really pointy knife right now. It's just going, you know what? You think you're so safe up there. You can sat there on Ian's top spot for 5 months. Well, guess what? I'm in.
Boy,
it's ridiculous. It is so I can't get enough of it. It just absolutely blows my mind. If anybody has even a passing interest in like space themed progressive metal, like Parallax 2 by Between the Buried and Me, or even like Ziltoid the Omniscient by Devi, it sort of treads very familiar territory to that. Not necessarily musically in terms of Devin Townsend, but definitely thematically, because it's kind of like this cheesy space opera kind of thing, but a little bit more serious than like Ziltoid and what have you. But it's got that sort of coma ecliptic Between the Buried and Me thing going on with it. That sort of era's style and approach is a lot less growly and a lot less sort of aggressive, much more melodic kind of metal going on with it. But it's got that thematic sort of connection to Parallax 2 and the whole space thing. And it's so good. Like I cannot stop listening to it. And I'm big hyped to do a big review on this one, because my God, I just want to gush about it for like the end of time. But yeah, that's definitely going to be featuring in my Q4 sort of like favorite records easily. But thoroughly recommended that one without getting too far into it. But apart from that, I don't think there's anything else. No, December's always dry.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I think that's me.
Great. And that brings us to the end. Thank you 3 once again for coming on and chatting about some music. I know I've got some homework that I'm really excited to dive into.
For sure.
Honestly, this is all just a project for me, just to find out more music and what I've missed for each one. So I've collected those individuals that I know have kept their noses to the grindstone while I've been doing this. So yeah, why don't we go around one last time just to say where people can find you. I'll leave the links to each of your YouTube pages down below. But if there's anything you guys want to leave the listener with or watcher with, if there's anything that you want to promote, now would be the good time. And why don't we start with Nathan?
All right. So yeah, my channel is Nathan on Shuffle. Like I've mentioned at the beginning, just all kinds of great prog stuff on there. Do want to mention checking out the latest Glass Hammer music video. I might be included in it at some point, so that's kind of a fun thing. So, but yeah, just my channel and just continuing with all the same content that I've been doing. It's a lot of fun.
Amazing. Yeah, and I've been really loving your top 5s that you've been doing off the top of your head. Those have been a lot of fun.
I look forward to those every Friday.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. Brent, where can people find you?
They can find me at The Similitude of Prog on YouTube and Facebook as well.
Amazing. Yeah. And Ian?
Yeah, I'll sort of do my little piece again. It's Rhyme Signatures, if you like a bearded northern gentleman from merry old England, the land of progressive rock, by the way. We invented it. No one else. We have claim to this. Then, just hit me up there. I try to get videos. I don't really have like a schedule or anything. It's just as and when, really, to be honest with you, because I don't like pressuring myself with anything. I tend to really mostly talk about music that I like, because I don't like poo-pooing on things that much, to be honest, because I like to basically highlight things that I think people will enjoy. and try and bring that to people's attention. I've been having a lot of fun with the channel. It's obviously only a dinky one at the moment, but I'm cool with that. You know, I'm fine with being a tiny channel. It's cool. I get very excited when I see my views go up by like 3. I'm like, ooh, it's exciting. Somebody watched it. Oh my God. Very exciting when that happens. So yeah, check it out if you like my acerbic brand of British humor that you've experienced over the course of this hour and a bit or whatever it is. Then there's more of that to be found over at Rhyme Signatures. Come check it. Let's have some party time.
Yeah. And I will highlight, this is one of the things that I love about our little community is how positively we've been talking about music. Like I will echo both your sentiment, but you know, we very rarely put the spotlight on albums we don't like. Usually we would much rather talk about and gush about music that we do love. So just wanted to end on that note for that. So, and I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank my guest stars once again. We will see you again at the end of the year where we'll talk about the October, November, and December album releases. And then I think we'll do a separate video for the album over like the year overall. Where we'll talk about our favorites, our disappointments, and kind of wrap everything up with a good bow. So yeah, look forward to those videos and others very soon. And thank you all for watching. Thank everybody for being here. Go and check them out. Go and support them. Show them some love. And until the next one, I'm always so bad at finishing up these because I'm so used to having my script at the end of all of my videos, you know. But what I will say is thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, Notes, Ian, Nathan, and Brent, we're all out.
Night, guys.
See ya.
See you next time.